Good morning, you're watching World News here on TVP World. It's 8 o'clock. Good morning. We are at the crossroads of history. This is a moment not for talk, it's time to act. With these words, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced the United Kingdom, Ukraine, France and some other nations would form a coalition of the willing and draw up a plan to take to Donald Trump. Key EU leaders met in London at the most important gathering since the EU administration lashed out at President Zelenskyy in the Oval Office on Friday. Sonia Agata-Bishan has more.
Today's Ukraine Defense Summit, hosted by Prime Minister Keir Starmer, welcomed an array of high-level European leaders and beyond. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen, Secretary General of NATO Mark Rutte, and many, many others. They were all in the same room discussing the future of Ukraine. And although this meeting was not intended to bring about any concrete measures and results, at least not ones that are known to the public already, there are already some emerging initiatives coming out of it. One of them is the European Coalition of the Willing, what they refer to as planes in the air, boots on the ground. It is unlikely that any European or other nation would be forced into this coalition, but it is an option that now emerges. What was an overarching message at this meeting was that there is continued support for Ukraine, and everyone who was present in the meeting acknowledges that. This meeting is occurring also against a backdrop of somewhat weakening U.S.-Europe relations, or at least this is what is the appearance of that based on the Friday meeting between President Zelenskyy and President Trump. At the same time, host of this meeting, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, said that U.S. remains an important ally.
Nobody wanted to see what happened last Friday, but I do not accept that the US is an unreliable ally. The US has been a reliable ally to the UK for many, many decades and continues to be.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, who was also one of the people in attendance, highlighted the importance of continued support towards Ukraine, and he said that Poland will continue to be involved in the various processes surrounding that. He also highlighted the importance of investing in defense, and this is a sentiment that was also echoed by the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte.
More European countries will ramp up defence spending. Of course, the UK announced this last Tuesday and Wednesday, but I believe that other countries will follow. And this is important, not only because we need more of a sort of fair balance with the US in terms of defence spending, but also because we know that our security situation is such that we need to spend more on defence, particularly now on the European and Canadian side.
Similarly, President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, highlighted that she will introduce on 6th of March a program on how to rearm Europe. So this is just one of the meetings and developments that are occurring right now, all on the same topic of how Europe can improve its security and defense. From London, for TVP World, Sonia Agata-Bishan.
On his way back home from London, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said he has been assured of Europe's support for Ukraine, and he added that the coming days will bring numerous meetings aimed at giving Ukraine security guarantees.
There is clear support from Europe, even greater unity, even stronger readiness for cooperation. Everyone is united on the main point. For peace to be real security guarantees are needed. And this is the position of all of Europe, of the entire continent. The United Kingdom, the European Union, Norway, Turkey. Today we coordinated our positions. There will be many meetings and joint efforts in the coming days and weeks. There will be diplomacy for peace. And for the sake of all of us standing together, Ukraine, the whole of Europe, and necessarily America. Of course, we understand the importance of America, and we are grateful for all the support we have received from the United States. There hasn't been a single day when we haven't felt grateful. Because this is gratitude for the preservation of our independence. Our resilience in Ukraine is built upon what our partners do for us and for their own security. We need peace, not endless war. And that is why we say that security guarantees are the key to this.
Russia's aim has always been to establish a government in Ukraine that dances to Russia's tune, said German Chancellor Olaf Scholz during a press briefing following the Ukraine summit held in London on Sunday. Scholz also added that strong and collective security guarantees will be the basis for lasting peace in Ukraine.
Russia's aim has always been to establish a government in Ukraine that dances to Russia's tune. That cannot be accepted. Ukraine is a European country that has decided it wants to join the European Union. As a democratic and sovereign nation, that must remain so. At the center of any security architecture for the future, there will be the joint effort of many to ensure that we have a strong Ukrainian army, now and also in peacetime. That will require an effort for which many are not yet really sufficiently prepared.
Following the Securing Our Future summit on Ukraine in London, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen stressed the importance of comprehensive security guarantees for Ukraine. She highlighted the need to strengthen Ukraine's defense capabilities and announced plans to rearm Europe, with a detailed proposal to be presented at the upcoming European Council on March the 6th.
We've discussed everything that is around peace through strength. And of course, security guarantees are of utmost importance for Ukraine, but we need comprehensive security guarantees. This includes that we have to put Ukraine in a position of strength, that it has the means to fortify and protect itself from the economic survival to the military resilience. It's basically turning Ukraine into a steeled porcupine that is indigestible for potential invaders. And therefore the focus is not only on the military supply, but also, for example, securing the energy system and making sure that over time this is a strong and resilient country. The second element I brought to the table is that we urgently have to rearm Europe. And for that, I will present a comprehensive plan how to rearm Europe on the 6th of March, when we have our European Council to the leaders.
As the world reacts to diplomatic fallout between the US and Ukraine, countries on NATO's eastern flank are watching the developments with particular concern, especially because of the reluctance in resolve shown by President Trump when asked about the Baltic states on Friday. Between President Trump's words concerning their security and their exclusion from the summit in London, the Baltic states are nervous and grappling with rapidly changing attitudes.
We gave you, through this stupid president,
Before the now infamous conversation between President Trump and his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelenskyy managed to get derailed, the US politician revealed snippets of his attitude towards NATO's eastern flank. The region closest to and therefore most threatened by Russia's imperial ambitions, but while praising Poland.
I think Poland has really stepped up and done a great job for NATO. As you know, they paid more than they had to. They are one of the finest groups of people I've ever known. I'm very committed to Poland.
Trump's remarks regarding Baltic nations raised, however, some eyebrows.
The Baltics, they get a lot of, it's a tough neighborhood too, but we're committed. We have put in far more than they have, and I think they should equalize.
President Zelenskyy took it upon himself to remind Trump of how the region's history influences the fight for its recent betray.
Russia will go further to Baltics and to Poland, by the way. They've been one of the republics of the USSR, and Putin wants to bring them back to his empire.
Meanwhile, Baltic leaders were quick to point out their levels of commitment to collective defense.
Latvia currently spends 3.4% of GDP, but I have already said that it is in our interest to increase spending to 4 or 5%.
While also reiterating that defending the eastern flank must be a collective effort.
I have no doubt that the U.S. will remain the leader in the international arena. For the EU to become capable, and it must be capable, and an equal leader to the U.S., we need to do a lot of work.
But while diplomacy was at full exhibit in the Baltic responses, Trump's remarks also inspired doubts, which experts nonetheless warn we should approach with caution.
There are different sentiments which are based mainly on fear. And what I would invite not to follow this type of fears of or sentiments or not to support them, because basically this is what Kremlin is exactly willing and waiting to happen.
Particularly that shortly after the White House debacle, European and NATO leaders arrived in London for a Ukraine emergency summit hosted by Keir Starmer, with Baltic representatives nowhere in sight.
This event today came as a surprise for our decision makers in regards of non-inviting them.
The British Prime Minister called to apologise for the non-invitation. In a phone call with Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda, Latvian Prime Minister Vika Silina and Estonian President Alar Karis, the British Prime Minister vowed that the situation will not repeat itself. However, this is not the first time when the Baltics have been snubbed during a high-stakes meeting. Their recent absence from the emergency summit in Paris raised concerns about the pan-European and pan-NATO strategy.
We believe that, first of all, it is the moment when Europe should be very much united.
As the world watches in anticipation to see how transatlantic relations unfold, only time will tell whether this was merely a blunder.
Nord Stream 2 may see a revival. A former spy and close friend of Vladimir Putin is pushing to restart Russia's Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline to Europe. His efforts now have the backing of US investors. Matthias Warnig, an ex-Stasi officer from East Germany who ran Nord Stream 2 parent company for Kremlin-controlled gas giant Gazprom until 2023, is the man behind the plan. According to sources close to the prospective deal, Warnig decided to approach the Trump administration through American entrepreneurs. The subject fell on fertile ground as the relationship between Kyiv and Washington deteriorates and economic ties between US and Russia tighten. Any such deal between Washington and Moscow would require the US to lift sanctions against Russia. Some American investors have reportedly expressed interest in possible cooperation. Other reports suggest that some EU officials have become aware of these talks and expressed concern over these developments. There's no unity of opinion on the seizing of Russian assets, said Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk during a press briefing on Sunday. His statement follows in the wake of Ukraine summit held in London, which focused on achieving durable and lasting peace in Ukraine.
There is no unity of opinion on this issue. Or to put it another way, everyone knows that it would be best to seize Russian assets and allocate them to the defense and rebuilding of Ukraine. But some fear the adverse consequences of such a move, whether for the euro or the banking system. Therefore, enthusiasm for this solution is limited. Poland is very much in favor, but also let's not fool ourselves, since we are not in the eurozone. Warsaw will not be the deciding voice on this matter.
Latvia is preparing to raise its defense spending, according to the country's president. This move aims to accommodate the US demands for Europe to put in more effort when it comes to its defense, especially as the relationship between Washington and Kyiv deteriorates.
We have the NATO summit ahead of us. We have a fragile relationship where a step to the right or left in rhetoric or a tougher rhetoric between the US and Europe can change the situation. Of course, the situation is not hopeless. I do not think we should think that the US has left NATO and everything is over. But for America to be strong, for NATO to be strong, and for Europe to be strong, there is still a lot to be done. That's why I am talking carefully about the Hague summit, because of the conversations I've had with the Latvian foreign minister and our diplomats, as well as my conversation with the Polish president, who also met with Trump. The issue of defense spending is really important there. Latvia currently spends 3.4% of GDP, but I have already said that it is in our interest to increase spending to 4 or 5%. And we need to reach 5% by 2028 at the latest.
And to wrap up, let's turn to the stars now. Romantic comedy drama Anora has won the Oscar for the Best Picture. Mikey Madison won the Academy Award for Best Actress for her performance in the lead role. Meanwhile, Adrien Brody won Best Actor for his role in The Brutalist. During the ceremony, there was also no shortage of references to Friday's Oval Office argument between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelenskyy, addressed Actress Daryl Hannah uttered the Ukrainian greeting Slava Ukraini before she presented the award for Best Editing. Oscars host Conan O'Brien said, commenting on Anora's success, "I think Americans are finally ready for someone to stand up to a powerful Russian." And that's a wrap for this edition of World News, but please stay tuned to TVP World as World Talks are coming up next.